till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want.
Hey guys, Coach Dan here, aka captain of the Crunchy Peanut Butter team. I've been lifting for over 20 years. I hold a degree in exercise and sports science, and I've been coaching others for 10 plus years. On this channel, we're all about evidence-based hypertrophy or muscle growth training. Today, I'm going to take you through my lower body workout with some lateral delts. I'm going to show you what I do, explain why I do it, and show you exactly how to execute so you can apply it to your own training. Two things first up. If you're new to the channel and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, like it all the YouTube stuff. If you don't know if you'll like it, do it out of pity. Number two, Coach Dan, question of the day, best energy drink on the market. Big fan of a nice cold energy drink beverage, so hit me up with your favorite. In Australia, I make it sound like we're some kind of third world country. We aren't, but we don't get the same stuff. I look online and I see these, this wider range of flavors the world over, and I think, oof, that would be nice. Don't get me wrong, they're coming down here. It just takes it a little bit of time to get south to the island of Australia. Takes some time for the trends to, get there. Cereal, you think cereal will be a bit better? Energy drinks, I can see we're on the rise. Yeah, no sugar products, that's something that we need to get a little bit better at. Anyway, all that said, today, day 2 of my new split. Yesterday, full upper body day. Today, a little bit of throwing a bit of a spanner in the works. We're going lower body, but as you might notice, we're going to start off with some lateral delts. So because my lower body doesn't usually need as much volume, I'm putting some lateral delt work, which I do want a fair amount of volume to, on this day instead of on my upper body day. Now, hopefully they won't affect each other. So if I'm going, my program split has gone from push, lower body pull, and then push, lower body pull for 6 days. Now it's going upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. But the lower body has a lateral delt, so more like upper, lower, and lateral delts. So hopefully we can come back to back with the upper body and the lateral delt exercise such that this volume split, it's just more efficient. If I put the lateral delts on my upper body day like yesterday, it just becomes a really long session. If I can put it on this day, it kind of saves me that little bit. My legs don't require that much volume. I kick it off with the lateral delts, a bit of a nice introductory to the session. So if you think about the lateral delt, it has our arm coming out to the side. If we think about our pressing or any of our other kind of movements, they're kind of coming across here, pulling's going back. So hopefully we can slip that on this lower body day and have no effect. All right, I think that's all the housekeeping for today. Our lateral delt movement is this really nice Jim Lecco standing lateral raise machine. This is a really good one. The resistance is pretty bang on. I've used some not very good ones of these. The handles come nice and close together, so you get a nice range of motion, should I say. Some kind of plant you here. It's really good. There's a seated hammer strength one over here, which I have tried before, but again, the range of motion is limited. I still like that one, but this one is superior in my mind. So pretty straightforward. Well, actually, there is some pointers that I have already noticed from starting using this one somewhat recently in my training career. If you get right up close to the handles like this, it feels quite trappy to me, so it kind of get that shrug. So I'm going to stand a little bit away from it when I do it, such that our arm's coming out slightly in front of the body. We raise. I'm thinking about pretty much ignoring holding that handle and just pretending the weight is an extension of my arm. Thinking about lateral delt into the deltoid tuberosity and into the acromion, pulling your arm out into these kind of positions. But yeah, if I were to get really in close to the machine, it has me do it like that, and I've always found that to be quite trappy. So I'm going to stand back as far as I can without, being pulled and being imbalanced, and see how we go with it. All right, new gym, new setup, very cool, very nice here. Some really good equipment. So if you were there yesterday and watched the video yesterday, different gym. So I'm going to choose between a couple of gyms depending on what suits me well on that day. Have some freedom to do that now that we're in more of a, I've moved from a regional area to a metropolitan area, I think you call it. So from more of a country-ish town to a city, more options, and therefore the ability to choose what I like, which again, probably doesn't matter a lot, so don't be too stressed about it, but I do that kind of stuff because I am anal. All right, let's hit lateral delts and then we're onto the legs. All right, we kick this leg portion of the workout off with some seated hamstring curls. So I started recently doing this in front of my quad dominant movement on this day, such as a hack, squat, leg press, etc. Almost as a little bit of a warm-up. So you kind of get the body moving with the hamstring curl, and then when you get to the heavy movement with the squat, it kind of goes a little bit smoother. It was a worthwhile strategy. When you go from that to this can be affected terribly as well, but going the other way, this to that, not as bad. So seated hamstring curl, one of the main benefits of the seated hamstring curl is that we start in this pre-stretch position, almost as if you're doing a sit and reach stretch, versus a lying hamstring curl where you're lying down, bringing your heels to your butt. And that pre-stretch position, or the lengthened position in training, seems to have a lot of value. So with that in mind, we want to make sure the heel or that is up as high as possible to get us as big a stretch as possible, essentially within your own range of motion. Step number 2 is to kind of clamp this down really tight such that you're nice and locked into place, and then we pull the heels down towards the butt. Control as we stretch and lengthen out, heels down towards the butt. Bada bing, bada boom. So we start with the shoulders on this day to get that lateral delt volume in. Hopefully that'll stay away from the upper body work and won't affect that too much, but we'll see as this program goes on. Can I do lateral delts on the lower body day, because that doesn't have a lot of volume, and I do 5 sets of it, and then leave all the other stuff on the other upper body day, and hopefully there's no crossover or they don't affect each other too much is the goal. Okay, let's get started here. Again, we're at a new gym, so we're figuring out weights, we're figuring out setup positions, all these kinds of things, which sometimes takes a little bit of practice, but once we get it, we note it down in our program, and then we just keep coming back to the same setup each time. All right, let's do it. All right, we move on to our quad dominant movement of the day. So this is a old school hammer strength plate loaded squat machine. Now I looked online, I couldn't figure out what the name of it was called. The closest thing, I think I put it on my program, might have been Super Squat Machine. I think Watson make one these days. Hammer strength power squat machine. So that's what I could find. I don't think they make it anymore because I wasn't able to find the name for it. Really good. So I'm a big fan of hack squats. I would usually do this hack squat on a quad dominant day or Smith machine squat, but coming to this gym, which is a new gym to me, I found this machine. It feels really good. So we've got a couple of things here. We've got the different horns, so we can weight the different parts of the movement. So if you think about it like this horn is directly out or closer to directly out from the, how do you say, the hinge point. And as we go down, well, it's actually up higher than the hinge point. And as you come down in the squat, it gets directly above, out from the hinge point or somewhere down like this. So it's going to get harder as the movement goes on. Easier as the movement goes on. So harder in the stretch position seems to have value for muscle growth. So we make it harder by loading that one versus this horn down here. But again, your preference could be such that if you're in a deep squat position and you load it heavily, you get some joint pain. And in that case, this horn down here is probably a good option for you. It means that you can go through a good range of motion. and not have that pain, because it gets harder out of that stretch position, but you can still go to the stretch position. So it's a little bit of experimentation. Potentially doing both over the course of time has merit. There are different machines that kind of do that job for you. For example, there's a pendulum squat here where I'm going to do in a couple of days' time, and because that is on a pretty significant hinge, that will kind of make it such that it gets easier at the bottom and harder as you go. Whereas this one, we can make it harder at the beginning. Something like a hack squat is equal throughout because it's just coming straight down like that, and some 45-degree leg press coming straight down like that. Anyway, with all that said, this quite unique machine, we're going to tuck our head in here like such. Set our feet center platform. I like a pretty narrow stance. Get this shoulder pad all set. Here, I'm going to put my hands here. That's felt most comfortable. Control the down. Stacks a knee flexion, and then we're up. So this will be my grand total of second time trying this. So it might take a little bit of practice to kind of really feel it out and get a handle on the movement and see what I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, or if it's good or if it's not good or whatever it might be. So stay tuned. Next couple of weeks, I'll give it at least a couple of weeks, but so far it makes sense to do and it feels pretty good. All right, last one quickly before we get into it. So for this, I've also decided to add this little block because my range of motion is limited because I'm a bit short. And that was number one. Number two here, what I'm going to do here is a drop set for the third set. So because I'm going to an upper lower body split, so it's going to be 6 days per week of training, upper lower, upper lower, upper lower. What I was doing before was a heavy set on hack squats, a moderate set, another moderate set, and immediately after that third moderate set, a drop set. So it was 6 to 8, 8 to 15, 8 to 15, drop the weight, 10 to 20, 4 total sets. Because now I've changed my frequency, which I'm going to be going again in 48 hours to train the lower body, I'm going to do 3 sets. One top set, 6 to 8, back off set or down set, 8 to 15, take some weight off for our drop set, 10 to 20. So pretty tough protocol, but I did find that to be very uncomfortable but very effective. So we're going to do that again. So yeah, I'll show you that in full flight here in a second, but heavy, moderate, and then drop the weight and pretty much immediately go again. Walk around, take weight off side, walk around, take weight off side, get back in, start again. All right, let's do it. All right, with more freedom as far as our new program split. So there's freedom, but then there's time to be quite smart within that freedom. So we're going upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. Means we get 3 shots at lower body days per week, which means we get more opportunities to do more things. What that also means is then we have to potentially be a bit cautious and clever about what we put where such that we can recover. So I have always found doing too many things with a bar on my back, like going squats, and then like Smith machine squat, hack squat, putting heaps of things on my shoulder just wrecks me. So we can only do so many of those things. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, next up we're going to our glute dominant exercise. So this is a kickback machine. Now I haven't always loved some of these machines. They limit a little bit of range of motion in my experience. There's one right there which does exactly that, limits his range of motion. So with that in mind, I decided to try this one, and I can kind of jimmy it such that I can get a good range of motion. So if we think about the job of the glute, it's to extend the hip and a little bit of potentially hip abduction, so moving your leg out like that. So we want to kind of do both of those functions, in my opinion. So I do, on 2 different days, I do a machine abduction and I do a couple of hip extension exercises. So this one here, if we're thinking the glute's job is hip extension, so you think about squeezing your butt, extending your hips. We want to stretch it out and to go through a good range of motion, a bunch of hip flexion. So what you'll find in some of these machines, they kind of have you kind of do this kind of shit. Not a lot of hip flexion to stretch out the glute. This one, I found that I can make it such that I get a good amount of hip flexion. So what I'll do, this might be traditionally what the manufacturer's intended to do, but I'm going to lean all the way into it. I even put my head here on this platform that's meant for your elbows and stuff like that, such that I get a whole stack of hip flexion, and then we kick back like that. Stretch out, kick. So I'm yet to fully grasp the best way of doing this one, so I've got some practice to do. This will be my 2nd time total doing it. So it might take a little bit of time to get used to, but ultimately the writing is on the wall. I think it's going to be pretty good. So we're going to give it a good try and see if it gets the booty all pumped up. Because all us boys, none of us really want big booties, but work on the glutes anyway. I've done my other movements, I've done my hamstrings, I've done my quads. Only 2 sets here because on things like those squats, the glutes already get a little bit of love, so I don't have to go overboard on the glute stuff. All right, let's begin. All right, next up, machine adduction. So the adductors, a potentially ignored muscle group in lower body training. You know, people might train quads, glutes, hemis, but some people often forget the adductors, which is kind of this group of muscle running through the inside of your leg, which pulls your leg together, also helps flex your hip, or do that, should I say. So again, it just works, you know, to build the leg overall, which is not a bad thing in pretty much most circumstances. This I found to be a pretty good machine, Cybex machine hip adduction. There's a machine abduction right here. I'm going to do that on our next lower body day for the glutes more so. Both of these are pretty good. So what I found with this one is it is best to kind of set the width up front and then crawl into the machine to get the best stretch. Otherwise it's quite hard to get into that kind of position. So we're in this kind of position here, driving the knees. I think leaning back makes a lot of sense to keep the hip open and potentially stretch those adductors out that little bit more. And then we drive in. So I'll do this machine 2 times on 2 different lower body days per week for 2 sets each is it. Because these muscles will work without things like squats, hip hinges, things where we have to extend the hip. And sometimes when you angle your feet out to kind of make those feel better or technique wise for them to feel better, in that position they can help do the movement. So we don't need to do heaps of work, I've found personally. Just a couple of sets on a couple of the lower body days per week. I do on this day 5 to 10, on the other lower body day 10 to 15 just to mix it up. I would be inclined for lots of different things to do different exercise selection if I had the option. However, to do this kind of muscle group with a different exercise selection might be setting up a cable, getting one of those cuffs, dragging the foot in. And I just figure I'm just going to do this. It's not that much of a priority to kind of do that, I think, and maybe that's not going to matter. It's going to be a lot of work for not much payoff, I think. All right, let's build it up, check out what weight we're lifting, and then get into it. All right, we go calves and abs to finish here. At this stage of the workout, I like to make this nice and efficient to kind of, I've been here a while, I've done some really tiring things, so trying to make it as efficient as possible. So we're gonna go GHD crunch here, and then we're gonna do a calf exercise just along the way as a superset. So I'm gonna do this, maybe jot down my reps in my phone, walk over there, do that, make it really efficient, such that we don't have to spend a whole X amount of time here and X amount of time there. We're kind of saving some time, and calves and abs shouldn't affect each other too much. So this is actually one of my favorite kind of abdominal exercises, basically a GHD crunch or sit up. So we're going to utilize this curve of this pad here to kind of stretch out our abs and get a good range of motion, because there's no ground or bench or anything here that you might normally do crunches on. And then we're going to crunch over it. So what I'll do is I'll start by hooking my feet in, roll myself down until the lumbar curve or lower back is on that pad, stretch out over the top, and then crunch into that position there. Now, I've done this such that I'm also going to get a dumbbell and hold a dumbbell here by my throat to kind of increase our difficulty. All right, let's go check out what we're going to do for calves as well. All right, so we're going to superset our GHD abdominal crunch with this Rotary calf raise machine. Really interesting machine, feels very effective. This is a Cybex brand, which is in my experience, a pretty high quality equipment manufacturer. So what happens with this is that instead of with most calf raises, you might move yourself back, or you might like move a fixed platform. This actually moves as you do it. So what it will look like is we're here and we're essentially moving that platform like that. Very unique. You don't see that pretty much ever anywhere, but feels really good, feels really effective. So I'm going to do it on this day. The GHD crunch is maybe 5 meters away, so I'll do that, walk the 5 meters over here, jot down my reps on that, get on here, do it, jot down my reps, and pretty much walk back and forth. Only 3 sets. I think one of the big advantages to what the change in programming that I have done is that for my lower body work, instead of splitting my stuff over 2 days with a push, lower body pull, push, lower body pull, there's 2 lower body days there. Now I'm splitting it over 3. So what that means is per day, I've got less work to do, so I can really get in and just give it absolutely everything versus, thinking, oh, I've got to do this, then that, and then this. I think that's a pretty big advantage. Got a couple of things to do, like per muscle group, there might be one thing, so you can really get in there and just absolutely smash it out. Whereas if you have quad exercise and a quad exercise and a quad exercises, you might not consciously shirk it, but you're thinking by the time you're getting to the end, you're like, or like potentially those earlier ones, you're thinking, well, I've got to save some juice for the end, even if it's subconscious. You go, I know I've got 10 sets here to do, versus I've got 3 or 4 sets, and then in a couple of days' time, 3 or 4. You can just absolutely get in there and give it everything. I think I prefer that version. It is traditionally I'm that way inclined, more of a sprint kind of person versus a long distance kind of person. So maybe that's a me thing. All right, let's begin our Superset GHD crunches and rotary calf raise, and then we are finished. How good?